Hey guys, thanks for jumping into the pond. I'm Dog God Froglog, and this is going to be our guide on Odin. Odin's a really aggressive champ. He's a lot of fun to play. He gets there quickly and he hits hard. His leader ability is deploy a cursed warrior with charge. A cursed warrior is a 1/1 that has charge. So he runs straight across the board. He starts getting in that tower damage right at the beginning of the match. You can use it to get a couple extra trades. It's a really effective, really easy to use leader ability. First card up is Backstab. Deal 3 damage to your opponent's summoning stone. At first glance, it's not that good, 3 damage to a summoning stone, but it only costs 0 and it combos with a lot of stuff. There's a 1-turn kill Odin that loves Backstab. So there's a lot of moments where you can just get that extra lethal in with Backstab. It's really effectively priced. You're just gonna like it. Depending on what you're running, you might not want to use it, but it's definitely not bad at all. Next up is the Gauze. Deal 1 damage to an enemy and spawn a cursed warrior. The cursed warrior does not have charge from this. It's just going to make a 1/1. But it's not bad at all. It costs 0, so it gives you a little bit of extra oomph. It's 2 with your leader ability. You know, you make a 1/1, you swing with it, you get a Gauze to get it. There's other cards that you can combo with, like Fate, to kill a 3-drop. So it's not bad. It's pretty fairly priced. Does what it needs to do. Next up is Mayhem. Mayhem's a really fun card. It's really easy for Odin to go really wide, have a lot of units out on the board, and that's when Mayhem just unleashes. Randomly deal 1 damage to enemies for every friendly unit in play. It doesn't count your summoning stone, it counts every friendly unit. And there's just a lot of ways to build up a big board, and Mayhem can really hurt. A little bit of a gamble, it can't hit their tower, but the right moment, the right kind of Mayhem, and they're gonna cry. Next up is Pardon. Give a friendly unit immune to return damage. This is a pretty good card. It makes everything that you have into a little fury of its own. And it's good. You come in, you swing, they can't swing back. They're going to have to answer it on their next turn. So you get in some trades that they otherwise wouldn't expect. It only costs 1 mana, so you can still make other plays that turn to combo with it. But it has a lot of synergy, gets a lot of value pretty easily. It's a pretty good card. Next up is Valhalla's Blessing. Draw a Norse card from your deck and reduce its cost by 1. Another card that you're going to see a lot in 1-turn kill Odin. And draw a Norse card is pretty good. It deck thins you a little bit, so it's effectively like running 23 cards when you're running 2 of these, and it does reduce its cost. So it's like you never even played it, really. It's pretty good. It does what it's supposed to do. You'll see it now and then. Next up is Valhalla Sorcery. Discover any Norse spell for 1. It's pretty decent. You might have need of an answer that you don't just have in your hand right yet. You can't Blessing for it or something. Valhalla Sorcery might come in a pinch. A little bit of gamble in this card, but it's not too bad, and combos well with Imperial units and whatnot. You'll see it a lot more in Arena outside of 1-turn kill. Next up is Warrior Sigil. This is a card that combos really well if you're going for Mayhem. Deploy 2 Cursed Warriors. They don't have charge, but it makes your board state really wide. It's a really good setup for running Mercenary. Warrior Sigil and a Mercenary, there's a 3/3, so all you have to do is make a couple units, and Warrior Sigil helps for that Not too powerful by itself, but it's very fairly priced. Next up is Onsuz. Discover an Omen. Onsuz is pretty good. You can discover an Omen that gives a creature +1/+1 for 0. 2 damage for 0 to anything you want, or a silence for 0. So it's very versatile. You're going to run it fairly often because just from the different options it has and how effective it is at finding the right answer. You don't have to worry about having other silenced units when you're running on Sus, because you can just use that for a silence in a pinch. It's good. Next up is Charge. Give a friendly unit charge. Very, very straightforward on this card. You see it in 1-turn kill Odin to set up with the Imperial, and it's pretty good. Outside of 1-turn kill, it's not ran quite as much since most of your units are so quick already, or you're just comboing for Mayhem and whatnot, but it's not a bad card. Works well with something like maybe a Loki if you have 8-7 mana. It's not too bad. Not too bad. You'll normally see a Runestone of Ire in place of this. Next up is Crippling Curse. You've probably been hit by a Crippling Curse. You've probably seen it a fair bit. Set a unit's health to 1. That means you Crippling Curse, you make a 1/1 with charge, and their unit's dead. You can use it to answer any big threat. It's a good card. You're going to see it often. You should probably run one yourself. Next up is Fate. Deal 2 damage to up to 2 random enemies. This is really good in the early game. When they're only playing like 1 unit at a time. Maybe they play Hu Yi and he's going to come across the board and start scaring you. You Fate, you make a 1/1, you get in there and kill it. A lot of good spots with Fate. Gives you a little bit of extra tower damage at time. Maybe takes 2 units off the board. It's not too bad. Not too great, but it's definitely not too bad. It's 4 damage for 2, so I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You're going to see it a lot. Next up is Gungnir's Might. Deal 2 damage. If this is the only card in your hand, deal 3 instead. Fate's a little bit stronger, but Fate's random. The Might isn't. You can actually pick where it goes, and if you manage to dump your whole hand quick enough, it's 3 damage, so it answers a little bit of a bigger threat. It's pretty good. It can hit the tower, help you get the extra lethal, which is something good about Odin. About all of his damage spells can hit the tower, so you can see where the theme is just get in, get aggressive. And the Might helps you get a little bit aggressive. Hasten Fatalis. This is a great card. Select a friendly unit, they can attack twice this turn. This is great for going straight for the lethal. This is great for using something that would die to an archer to get 2 kills out of instead of just 1 and dying. So it's a really good card. You're going to see it pretty often. You could easily just run 1 of, but it's not wrong to run 2. A lot of good spots for value with this, especially if you're running any sort of buffs like Wind Demon or Enrage or Coerce. Hasten Fatalis can really hurt. Next up is Hunter's Sigil. Deploy 2 ranged Curse Hunters. These are 1/1 archers. You get 2 of them for 2 mana, so it's not as effective for filling up your board as the other Sigil. But archers are a little bit more valuable, hence why it costs 2. And they are still 1/1, so you're really weak to Capri's, a Blanc, anything that deals 1 damage to the board. Rain of Arrows from Bologna, they're definitely not too hard to take out. Next up is Ratatasker, and this is a 2-drop that you're going to see most Odins run. Whenever this unit attacks, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. He's a 2/3 for 2 with a little bit of extra oomph. So he comes out fairly often. He does a little bit of extra damage. He's a really good 2-drop. Next up is Wind Demon. Give a friendly unit +2/+2 and deal 3 damage to your summoning stone. Wind Demon's really effective if you haven't taken that much damage. You're not scared of them doing lethal to you. Wind Demon makes anything you want a little bit stronger. So all of a sudden, they're losing a trade that they thought they were going to win. Wind Demon is really good, really fairly priced, and swings a lot of games in your favor. And it is an essential card in 1-turn kill Odin. Next up is Banish. Banish enemy units in a 2x2 area. This only works for 1 turn. You can walk through banished units. It doesn't remove any effects that they might have, but it does stop their effects from triggering while they're banished because they're no longer on the board. So it's an interesting card. Most Odins go for more aggressive choices, either to remove units from the board or just to go straight to face. So you don't see banish that much, but it's interesting. It has a couple uses here and there. Next up is Enrage. Give a friendly unit +3/+3. They die at the end of the turn. I'm a bigger fan of the Wind Demon because 3 damage isn't too much to you when you're playing such an aggressive deck. And they do die at the end of your turn no matter what when you Enrage. But Enrage can help you get that extra oomph, keep your health a little bit safer, and make just a trade that you otherwise wouldn't get with the Wind Demon. 3 for +3/+3 is pretty fairly priced. It's a pretty fair card. Next up is Fafnir. Now Fafnir is super interesting. If Fafnir is included in your deck, you cannot play cards that cost 5 or more. So you need to be careful about Fafnir. He is a 3 for 5/5, and it's very easy for you to keep everything below 5 with Odin. The thing to watch out for is, let's say they play Pillar of Patience. All of your 4-drops now cost 5. You won't be able to play them because of Fafnir being in your deck. So there are tiny little interactions like that you need to watch out for. But other than that, Fafnir is straight value. It's very hard to answer a 5-5 that early in the game. And Fafnir can really, really hurt. Next up is Gift of Moonin. You're going to see this a lot. It's 3 damage for 3, and if you have less cards than your opponent, draw a card. So it's a kill spell that draws a card for you. And it's really good. About everybody uses this. I'm a big fan of it. It hurts. It does what it's supposed to do. It refills itself in your hand, helps you deck into more aggressive threats. It's just a really, really good card. Keep in mind it only hits a unit, so you can't hit a summoning stone with it. But other than that, enjoy it. Next up is Siege. All friendlies gain +2 attack against the summoning stone. This can end a game. This can end a game so bad. If you have 3 1/1s, all of a sudden that's an extra 6 damage. It gives them the ability. It's not a 1-turn effect. So as long as the units are on the board, they're going to keep that siege effect. So it's really good. It's really easy to get a lot of value from this. You'll probably die to it every now and then. It just works. It just really works. Scotty. Add a Calder to your hand and reduces cost by 1. This lets you have a 1 cost 2/2, and she's a 2/3 archer. She's really effective. You're going to see her a lot. She sets up for the mercenary that we were talking about earlier. And she's an archer, so she's really good at getting a little bit of that extra damage in. Dropping a wolf down for 1 mana is really good, and he gets +1 when Scotty's in play, so he'll be a 3/2 wolf for 1. You'll see it in a lot of Odins. It helps him go a little bit wider. It helps him get to your face, and when that wolf's not on your face, you're gonna cry a little bit. Next up is Soul. Attacks deal 1 damage to all enemies adjacent to the target. Her ability isn't too powerful. She's a 3-drop with a 2/3, but she does give you just a little bit of extra damage, which you might need when you're trying to get to that lethal. She does do a little bit of damage to the tower. She's not a bad archer at all, but you see Scotty a lot more than you see Soul just because the wolf is so much better value. Next up is Web of Weird, and it discovers a Norse god. It gains +2/+0. This is a good card. It lets you dig through all of your Norse gods basically and pull out just the right answer at the right time. It's a little bit pricey at 3, so you might not get to play what you pull that turn, but pulling an extra Freya, pulling a Hell when you really need buffs and you have a runestone out, there's a lot of good value that you can find inside the web. Next up is Coerce. Give all friendly units +1/+1 for 4 mana. So if you only have 1 or 2 units on the board, there's not a lot of Coerce value, but having 5 or 6 can really hurt. Giving everything +1/+1 isn't too powerful. It's just when you have so many units getting that buff all at once does it become really, really strong. So make sure you set up for it before you use it. Frenzy. All friendlies gain +2/+0 until the end of your turn. A lot of people run Coerce instead or Siege because Siege is just so much extra damage and it lasts a lot longer. It's a permanent effect. Frenzy isn't bad, but it costs 4, so it's the same as Coerce. Normally you take the Coerce just so you have that little bit of extra HP so that your stuff doesn't die, but depending on what you're doing, you could go either way. Next up is Runestone of Ire, and they had to nerf this card because it was a little bit too strong. You deploy a Runestone of Ire, all friendly units have charge. That's right, every single thing you play has charge. It's really powerful. If you combo this with a Hell, you're immediately making 3/3s for 2. It's just really good. There's a couple answers for it. There's Silence, there's Aegean Outcast, so you want to watch out for those. But getting a Runestone on the right board state essentially ends the game. Next up is Thor, one of Zeus's best gods. Gain +1/+0 for each adjacent enemy unit, so he can get really big in a hurry. If they're clumping up around their tower, you drop a Thor, maybe you hasten Fatalis, they have 3 units standing around your tower, you run Thor in there, you hasten Fatalis, there's 10 damage to the tower, so he helps you get lethal, he helps you take out a threat, he does everything that you need him to do, and he has 4 hit points on top of that. He's a really good card. Next up is Ymir. Attacks stun enemies. What he does is he freezes them. It still counts just as a stun. And things don't counterattack because they're frozen. So he's pretty good. He's a little bit weak on the power, but the freeze is pretty damn good. Blocking them out of a counterattack is a pretty good setup, and it also lets your other units get in there and swing freely. So big fan of Ymir. Next up is Fenrir. If Fenrir has not attacked when your turn ends, he gains +2/+2. So the longer the game goes on, the more passive you play with Fenrir, the stronger he gets, which makes him a little bit odd for Odin, since Odin wants to be so aggressive and get in there so quickly. But at least the very first turn that you play Fenrir, he's going to become a 6/5. He's definitely weak to the silence, he's weak to recall. Any sort of effects that take away that buff really hurts him. But if you can get it out when they're low on gas, and Fenrir can just get in there and end the game for you. Hel's really fun, and she's really good with the runestone out. You can target a friendly unit with attacks, giving them +2/+2. Keep in mind that that still can be silenced off of them, so you want to spread that out in a couple units just to make sure they get less value off any silences or recalls. But it's a really good effect. She's a really powerful card. She's the 3/4 archer herself, so she takes out a lot of units. She's just a little bit pricey at 5, but she's really good. Loki. Loki can teleport up to a target that is 3 tiles away when attacking. Loki's really fun. He's only at 3 hit points, so he's weak to any sort of, like, let's say Bacchus has attack all adjacent enemies, or they have a Hugh Yi with recursive vitality on, and he spawns right beside your tower. So you have to be careful that they don't come up and just wipe him out. He dies to annihilation. There's a lot of things that kill Loki, but he's very hard to stop when you do get back to your turn. He has stealth, so they can't directly target Loki with spells. They can't target him directly with war cries. They can't target him with leader abilities. So he normally sticks around for a turn, and after that he can just get in there and swing at pretty much whatever he wants. Next up is Freya, and this is a legendary that you have to craft. If you're not running Fafnir, you have to have a Freya. She deals 2 damage to up to 3 enemy units and banish units not killed. So the 2 damage is great. Finishes off a couple units you didn't quite get to, and the banish is even better. Let's say there's some things blocking their tower kind of near your front row. You drop Freya, you banish them, you run your units through, and you go and get lethal. She's a great card. Her body's a little bit weak, but that's because her effect is so good. You're going to want Freya. And finally, we have the Cursed Dragon. Deploy poison pools on target column. Units that end their turn on these tiles are poisoned. You're going to want to be careful because we've talked about poison before. It still lets them have that next turn to find value with those poison cards. Now he costs 7 mana, so he's really expensive. And he's a 4/5 archer. 4/5's pretty strong for an archer, answers a lot of things. And poison's a really good effect. Just make sure that your positioning is pretty good. Maybe put it on their back row, maybe lock them out of a couple spots. Because if they spawn a unit on the poison, they're in their turn, it's poisoned, you know? So just make sure you play kind of carefully. Make sure you set him up very well, but he can be an effective card, especially if they get a little bit too big for you to handle. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you tune in every single day at twitch.tv/doggodfroglog for more guides and gameplay.